This is Eric Rutan of Cannibal Corpse. You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast with Andrew McKay Smith.
G'day everybody and welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me. I love what I do because I get to talk to people like Kyle Thomas from Exhorder. Now the catalyst for our introduction is due to the launch of a new album from the group. It is titled Defectum Omnium and it will see light of day via Nuclear Blast on March 8th, 2023. Now, I've got a tune to share with you before we hit the chat, but only if you're listening via the podcast apps. This one is called Forever and Beyond Despair. Once it's done, you'll hear from Kyle. For you people on YouTube, you know the drill, can't play music, so we're going to cut to the chat straight away. Either way, let's go.
Andy?
G'day mate, how you going?
Well, how's it going?
Great, an A++ for punctuality, my gosh.
I try to be.
It's I'm not going to say it's rare, but it can be rare. There you go.
Amen. No, I don't like to keep people waiting. I don't like to have to wait.
Yeah, gotcha, yeah. I see there's an American football player there behind you there. Which team do you support?
Oh, that's Drew Brees from the New Orleans Saints. I'm born and raised in New Orleans, so it's always Saints for me.
Okay, gotcha. What did you think of the Super Bowl, the performance side of it? Not sideshow, but you know the game.
I missed it, to be honest with you. I was playing the last show of a tour in Latin America that we did with Violence, and we were in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It wasn't even an option to watch, and I was fine with that because I can't stand the San Francisco 49ers, and I'm kind of tired of seeing the Chiefs.
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Yeah, I think I try to get into the game. We have rugby league and rugby union here. I'm sure you're aware, but
Sure, yeah.
American football is very interesting nonetheless. Anything to do with football like that is worth investing some
Yeah,
time into.
absolutely.
You know. All right, mate. We'll kick things off. So you've got a new album out. Okay. So Defectum Omnium. Okay. It's a brutal bastard of a beast of an album, which I anticipated, but still, it's one thing to anticipate, but it's another thing to deliver. So there you go. Very intense. So that's my
Thank you.
question, essentially, is when you set out to craft an album, do you set to make one as heavy as you can possibly make?
You got to be careful with trying to make something heavy. Sometimes when you try to make something a certain way, it doesn't translate as well as just a natural feel. In my experience with songwriting, which to me is like the part of this art craft that I enjoy the most, is the songwriting and the production side of it, and the rest is residual. But to me, coming up with something from nothing, starting with silence, and then coming up with pieces of music and stringing them together with drums, vocals, all that stuff. There's nothing more disappointing than when you worked really hard on a song and you listen to it and the song's kind of lame. So you have to really be honest with yourself, brutally honest with yourself, and be willing to say, is this good? Would I spend money on this? And if the answer is no, then you might as well start over.
Yeah. Yeah. You've obviously got a lot of experience, though, as a musician and also as a songwriter as well. So the songs that were on Defectum Omnium, are they all brand new, or do some of them hark back to the olden days? So the days when you were first starting out?
I think maybe a couple, 2 or 3 of the songs might have been something that Jason had in some form or another in his arsenal and back catalog, that he took off and that we tweaked a little bit to make it more fitting for what we're doing. All the songs that I brought to the table were all pretty new. Everything that I wrote musically on this album was written in 2020 or since. So I think maybe just a couple of pieces of music that Jason had sitting around that were just kind of on the shelf waiting to be used. Some of that might have been around for a little while.
Yeah, gotcha. What about the Tale of Unsound Minds? That would be my pick of the tracks so far. I've only had it for a little bit, so keep that in mind when I mention that. But a killer track. Is there a story behind the lyrics there?
There is, but let me mention first, I love that you said that, because a guy I did an interview with yesterday said he loved every song but that one.
No accounting for taste, is there? My God.
So but that's the beauty of this album, is we set out to make an album that we loved, that we felt had peaks and valleys, and everything from the very roots of this band to where we progressed to now. And I think we've succeeded with that. So the fact that you feel that way about that song and then somebody else feels that way about the song, it just goes to show you that we have a wide spectrum of audience and what people expect from this band. So, that's that. I don't want to get too off the subject and forget what you asked with the question, but
you're right.
the story behind that song is very inspired by what happened to a lot of people during the pandemic. Now, for me, the isolation of the pandemic, when I'm not on tour, I stay at home by myself and work anyway. To me, the pandemic was a piece of cake, because I like being alone and I like working alone, and I don't like leaving the house unless I have to sometimes. So, but I know it's a big problem for a lot of people, and some people didn't survive that isolation, which is really just tragic. So I just tried to, when I wrote those lyrics, I really wanted to kind of step outside of what was happening to me and try to imagine what someone else is dealing with in this instance. And the isolation can drive someone to the brink of madness and make them crave interaction with other people. But then when you actually get out there and start interacting with other people, you might be one of those be careful what you wish for moments where, like, now I'm not so sure I want to be around anybody because I've been so isolated. You know?
Yeah,
that's a little bit of an irony to it, you know.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Just on that point, though, you know, it was the Wall Street Journal reported, and this is a quote, by the way, was it based on a quote from Anthony Fauci, that all of this follow the science bullshit that we've all been under the hammer of now for God knows how long, but particularly the 6-foot distancing rule that came into place that was adopted right the way across the Western Hemisphere, from Australia to Canada to New Zealand to Great Britain to the United States, okay? No scientific basis whatsoever. Zero. It was an opinion.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you know, when something's airborne, it's going to go more than 6 feet.
Yeah.
I truly believe I'm, you know, some people didn't even believe that the pandemic was real. My wife is a scientist. She does testing in hospital labs. I can assure you that from what she has told me, everything was real. But what did happen that I believe is that the powers that be exploited that to their advantage and put us in a position where we're even more limited and more dependent, which that's what the powers that be do. Am I right? I think
Correct.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the authoritarian left, mate. They went their hardest and they did their absolute worst, and there was an epidemic of suicides, and the isolation caused people to. I drank more. A lot of people drank more. I now go, and if anything, it accelerated the demise of me drinking alcohol. I no longer drink, and that's in part because I accelerated my drinking through. I'm not trying to make this about me. Sorry, I'm just saying that the whole point.
No, that's important.
Yeah, the whole point, and then amongst all of that, it was a completely abnormal and, the most important thing, amoral thing to foist on society, for the most part, by unelected officials like Fauci and these other psychopaths and the World Economic Forum and the WHO.
One thing I've learned in my lifetime, and it may be to a fault that I have a lot of these feelings, I don't trust. There's almost nobody I trust. You know? So, you know, just because they say this is a good idea, do it, doesn't mean it's a good idea and that it should be done.
Very, very true. Talking about good ideas, though, Pat O'Brien, okay, he's in the band. Okay.
Yes.
So, first of all, thank you. From a fan's perspective, thank you for giving him an outlet, because a lot of us were wondering where he'd resurface, and I'm just grateful, as I think a lot of people are, that it's with you guys. So I'm sure you've explained this elsewhere, but can you give us a story about how you connected with Pat?
Yeah, sure. Well, bear in mind that we are as blessed to have him in our camp as he feels blessed that we took a chance on him when, according to him, nobody else did. So, you know, not that we're looking for glory in that, but we're happy to have helped him during a time when he needed it. And God knows we did too. So it's been a symbiotic relationship that's worked out very nicely. Jason and Pat go back a very long way. They're both from the Cincinnati area, and they've known each other since they were teenagers. So when we decided to move on with me being the guitar player, and it was just the three of us, and we obviously needed another guitar player. I've got my skill set, but, you know, soloing and all that is something that I do a little bit, and it's not my forte. So, you want to have a guy who can get in there and really burn it up on the solos, right? So Jason asked us, what do you guys think about me reaching out to Pat and seeing if he wants to come jam? Sasha and I were both absolutely all for it. We both knew Pat casually, and I enjoyed every moment I've ever spent with Pat. So I said, yeah. So he called Pat and I said, hey man, you want to come jam with us? And he said the first thing Pat said to him was, what the hell do y'all want to mess with me for? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, look at me. Like, nobody wants to touch me with a 10-foot pole right now. And he said, you're Pat O'Brien, dude. I don't know if you got the memo, but
So true.
people want to see you play, dude. And he's like, I don't know. So he said, how about this? He said, I'm not asking you to come audition. He said, I'm asking you if you just want to come jam with your friends. And I think Pat responded well to that and said, yeah, that sounds fun. So Pat came one day and we jammed and we fed the stray cat, and the stray cat hasn't left yet. So
I hope this question isn't too insensitive, but look, we want to see you in Australia, obviously. Okay. Are there any issues with Pat traveling abroad that you're aware of?
Yes, we're still trying to sort out the logistics of that. Unfortunately, he was slapped with a felony with all that he went through, and so it has complicated the clarity of where he can and can't go. And we've been searching hard to try and find answers, and it's not an easy thing to find answers on. Most of the time, people don't even know how to answer that question. So it's almost like we're just going to have to one day rip off the Band-Aid and give it a try and see if he gets rejected. And if he gets rejected, well, then I'm stuck playing guitar by myself. But in the meantime, we've been blessed to have Valdemar Srikta and Apollo Zedius step in and help us out traveling. But we're really ready to get Pat on the stage with us everywhere. I think everywhere in the world is ready for Pat. I'm really starting to think what we need to do is start a hashtag free Pat campaign or something, man, because there are, I don't want to say anybody's name and pick on anybody, but there are recording artists out there that did way worse things than him that are out there touring right now. And I don't see how they can do it and why Pat shouldn't be able to.
Yeah, look at the hip hop artists like Chris Brown who beat up Rihanna, yet can still tour, and all this bullshit. Yet, Pat,
you got enough money, and you got the right representation, and they can make things go away.
Yeah, very true.
It's that simple.
I know, very true. Yeah, it all comes out of bloody money, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sure does. Green privilege, I call it.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. Hey, you are part of, whether people realise it or not, you are part of this grand lineage of fantastic hard music, heavy music coming out of New Orleans and Louisiana. So between you and Phil Anselmo, the House Call Crew, and Eyehategod, and there's probably a couple of other bands in there too. Okay, do you guys all catch up in your own way? Are you all sort of mates?
Yeah. And it's a small town. It's not a very big metropolitan area here. So everybody knows each other, or somebody's related to somebody in some kind of way. There's a lot of times I spend more time with those guys out of town than I do at home. I see them more when we're playing festivals somewhere, and I hang out with them there. And it's like I was on the road with Alabama Thunder Pussy in October in Europe, and I'm in Switzerland. And Eyehategod shows up, and I'm like, I went to high school with Gary. Jimmy and I have been friends and in bands together since we were teenagers. And they walk up, and I'm like, how the fuck is it I see y'all at Alcatraz Fest in Belgium last year and here, and Jimmy lives like 2 miles from my house, and we don't see each other, but I see them when I go out on tour. It's funny.
I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? To your point there, you're a bit of you prefer staying at home, and the time that you do get out is with the music. So, and you guys are road warriors these days.
Yeah, so it does make some sense. But when we were younger, we spent a lot more time together, I think, just running around, having a good time, being carefree. But, most of us are either parents or grandparents at this point.
Yeah, I'm feeling you. Yeah, especially on the parental front. Hey, you're long on record about your feelings about all these questions you get about and comparisons to Pantera, so I'm not going to ask you about that, but it's actually around the commentary. So do the type of comments and questions, are they in the review mirror now, or do you still get a few?
No, a lot of people still, I every once in a while I meet somebody who feels the need to pull me aside and tell me how important it is that they tell me that they think that we were before Pantera, like whatever, it's like, and I always try to take it and deal with it in the most polite way possible. Cause people aren't saying that necessarily to incite me in some kind of way. They usually they think they're telling me something that I'd like to hear. And, I think there's room in this world for both bands. I think it's a good thing Pantera's back in business. Like, I think it's good for hard rock and heavy metal. And the more the merrier. They worked extremely hard, a lot harder than we did for their success. And, who cares whether the chicken or the egg came first? To me, they're both delicious.
Very good point. Yeah, I've read your views on it. I think you've always been very, you've been very polite about it, but circumspect too is the other perspective that you think you have. There you go.
Yeah, I've been friends with Phil for a long time. I always got along nicely with Daryl and Rex. That platinum record on the wall right there was a gift from Phil for Far Beyond Driven, presented to me, and my band Penalty at the time, which became Floodgate. It was just his way. Yeah, it was just his way of basically saying, "Hey, thanks, man." And I know what he meant. We were a big influence on him personally, and he returned the favor by spreading our demos around to people and turning people onto us. He was at one time probably the biggest cheerleader this band ever had.
I totally missed that. I mean, when I was just doing a bit of research, I got to tell you, I loved Floodgate. Okay. I loved the band and then the album Penalty. It was a Roadrunner release. I remember because I got that and Karma to Burn at the same time.
Karma to Burn. Yeah, what a great band that was.
First one. Yeah. There you go. That was an unbelievable album you wrote, by the way.
Well, thank you. That was the album that I wanted, that I was hoping to write towards the end of the Exhorder era, where we broke up in 93, I think it was. I had been itching for a long time to start doing something a little more along the lines of the early rock that I grew up on, and my brother felt the same way. So we decided let's just write this together, and then the rest of it fell into place with Steve and Neil, and Floodgate. Roadrunner was onto it immediately. Monte Connor fell in love with it quickly, and that was an almost band. That was something that I've never really gotten over what should have happened for that band versus what ended up happening to that band.
Okay. Yeah. It felt like this was back well before the internet became the behemoth we all know it to be now. So the album was released. I remember I had a sampler. I listened to that song. I can't remember what song it was now, but I went out and bought. I remember buying both of them on the same day, and I listened to that one a lot. And then I remember interviews with you back then that would appear in a couple of Australian publications, and you'd talk about drinking some red wine and writing some songs. Do you remember making those quotes? Do you remember you?
No, there was a lot of red wine and probably a lot of pills and other things going around back then. So I heard the 90s were fun and that I had a great time, but I don't remember.
There you go. Yeah. Well, no, I'm really grateful to give you that feedback. That's an outstanding album. Yeah. And I really wish that it went and lived another life. But can you give me some more insight as to what happened with the demise of the band?
I think what happened was, new metal started taking off, and Roadrunner had a handful of new metal bands that they were starting to feed. And I think they just looked at the budgets that they had originally set aside for us. They decided to start putting into those bands instead. So, you know how it is. The record industry is fickle, and nothing is guaranteed unless it's something that they expect from you.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Oh, it's great to... I don't know why that bloody slipped my my investigation on things. There you go. That's a throwback to my youth right there. Yeah, very unexpected. But thank you for writing that album anyway. But
yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, Roadrunner. Yeah, I mean, bloody Roadrunner. But Nuclear Blast, it's a lot better, isn't it? It's a lot more of a liberal environment for you to create, isn't it?
They have barely surfaced during the production of this album. They allowed us to produce this album ourselves. They were a little concerned at first that we wanted to do it. And then when we convinced them, no, this is the route that we need to take, they said, fine, no problem. And basically just backed off until we had a finished product and said, how's it going over there? And we sent them what we had been working on, and they were like, oh, wow. So they were extremely excited about this album all along the way. And the fact that they trusted us with creative control without micromanaging it, because it wasn't that way at Roadrunner. Roadrunner was very involved. They stood over everything. They had a lot more input into what happens with the songs, the sequencing of the songs. And this time around, they just kind of trusted us, and I think that it worked out nicely.
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah. How much time have I got, mate? Have I got time for one or two more? Is that cool, or have you got to jet off?
Yeah, you're fine. You're fine with that.
Yeah. What was the catalyst behind reforming back in 2008? Because the band had been in hiatus at that point for almost 15 years.
The promise of the potential of what could be with this band, I think, is always what drew us back into giving it another try. And when the dust settles after years and years of having disagreements, you always kind of come back to it, hoping that maybe this time we can get along. That's been absolutely the Achilles heel of this band, is the fact that it's just been difficult from a relationship standpoint. And that to me is the biggest injustice in this band, because I think had we been able to get along a lot better, we could have endured some of the other problems that we had that were hardships. But it is what it is. And, I can't sit there and pine over what could have been, because we're in a situation now where things are going forward nicely, and where people get along and we have peace. So, if we hadn't endured all the hardship along the way to get to this point, I don't know that we'd have the product that we have right now. And I'm grateful that we have the product that we have.
Yeah, great. Yeah. You're a talented fella, so music isn't the only thing that you invest your time into, okay? But what inspires you with the music? Because, as I say, you can do plenty of other things, but is there anything in particular, or are there many things in particular that inspire you with creating the music?
Unhappiness is probably the most important ingredient to writing anything. I mean, look at Edgar Allan Poe. He was a miserable soul, and look at the work that he did. Could you imagine if Poe was a spoiled brat? It wouldn't have happened the same way, would it? And life, and the hardships that come with life have always been the biggest catalysts for my creativity. Hardship, struggle, unhappiness, lament, all of these things, observing the world and the awful conditions that the world finds itself in, thanks to us. These are all easy, low-hanging fruit for me when it comes to finding subject matter. But when I'm fat and happy, I don't feel like doing anything.
I'll make this my final question for you. Then you've led a rich and varied life. The music has always been on point. I'm really great to have a chat to you about Floodgate as well. But I mean, the biography, you've got a heck of a story to share. When's it coming out?
When is what coming out?
Your biography.
Oh Lord, I don't know that there's enough excitement in my life to or this much. If there's probably a chance that if anyone read my biography, they'd be like, it's fake. There's no way nobody lived this life. But I don't know. I've got some chapters that I've written for a book, maybe one day. It's mostly for laughs, like funny experiences throughout my life from childhood on that I think people would enjoy reading. I don't know that some of the things that I've been through are too personal that I think they would bring pain to people that I love, and I don't want to do that. So I keep a lot of the hardships I've been through kind of close to the vest, just to protect my children, for instance. You know, I think there's a lot that they don't need to know, and if it is a price that I have to pay for telling my side of a story, then I'll do anything to protect my children.
I'm with you on that, and very well stated, very eloquently put. There you go. Yeah. Look, if that ever changes, I'm writing a biography for a Norwegian black metal musician at the moment. Just keep it in mind. I do these things. If you want to reach out through John or what have you, mate, I'm speaking to a number
right on.
At the moment. There's just the issue we've got, Kyle, is that a lot of these stories are going to go to the grave, unfortunately, and people don't really want to share their story because they either don't think they're interesting or, to your point, they're a bit too personal. But in hard rock, heavy metal, extreme metal, there's just stories for decades out there at the moment, and you've got a bloody interesting one, I must say. So if ever you change your mind,
thank you.
I'd encourage you to think about it. That's all.
It's good to know.
There you go. All right, mate. Well, hopefully, all things considered, mate, with Pat, we see you down here with Pat in Australia soon.
That would be great, man. We're dying to rip off the Band-Aid and get him out on international stages. He's ready to, I think.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on the album, but most importantly, a career and the perseverance and the staying power that you've had to. God bless, and thanks very much for the chat. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, likewise, man. We'll do it again.
Absolutely, brother. No worries. All right.
Sounds great.
Have a great one. Catch ya.
You too.
Done and dusted. What a fantastic fella. Kyle Thomas from Exhorder. As I said up top, people like Kyle are the reason I love the podcast, because I get to talk to these great musicians that have a long and storied history playing hard rock, heavy, and extreme metal. Wow. All right. So that's all from me. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast. Until the next one, it's a goodbye for now.